What's growing on, gardeners? It's Thursday, July 6th, and the heat, humidity, and thunderstorms are taking its toll on our gardens here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. And while our original plantings from early in the spring are dying off, the growing season is far from over. That's why on today's video, I'm going to share with you 6 different crops that you can still plant in July. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated. Summer can be accompanied by wacky weather. Depending on where you live, you can have searing heat, crippling drought, torrential rainfall, severe thunderstorms with high winds. No matter where you live, summer is a challenging season to grow through, and at this time of year, we often see damage in our garden that results in our plants dying back. When we start seeing our plants fail due to the extreme weather of summer, it's often tempting to just give up and call it quits for the season. But I'm here to tell you that is a huge mistake. That's because in most locations, fall is the best season for gardening. The gradual atmospheric cooling that happens during fall usually leads to the most stable temperatures, the least amount of severe weather, and the most pleasant growing conditions. So by preparing now, we can enjoy enormous harvests in the best weather of the year during the fall. And in this video, I'm going to share with you things that you should be planting right now in the July heat that will reward you greatly come the fall gardening season. Veggies 1 and 2 that you should be planting right now are cucumbers and zucchini. The summer heat and torrential rainfall have decimated my initial plantings of cucumbers and zucchini, and the conditions right now in July are just too tough for them to be productive, and they are all in the process of dying back. However, this is the perfect time for us to plant a new round of plants, and here's why. Most cucumber and zucchini plants grow and fruit very quickly. They grow and fruit in half the amount of time of tomatoes, for example. And the benefit of this time of the year is because the soil is so warm, you don't need to start transplants. Cucumbers and zucchini in the middle of the summer react great to being direct sown. So all you have to do is plop a few seeds in the ground, and they should germinate in only about 3 to 5 days. Then within about 50 days from there, you should be in the process of seeing your first fruits form, and by 60 days, you should be able to harvest them. So from the day you drop the seed into the ground, you will be picking your first fruits probably in only about 2 months. And in 2 months, we will be in the September cool down, where the weather is a whole lot more comfortable and enjoyable to grow in, and your plants will appreciate them a lot more, but it will still be plenty warm for them to be productive for weeks to come. The third plant that I am starting in July are peppers. Now, peppers have a much longer time from germination to maturity than your cucumbers and your squashes. However, the strategy here is completely different. The reason why I am planting my peppers right now is for season extension. This is my main crop of hot and sweet peppers. This is where all of my larger peppers are currently growing. However, come the first frost where I live, which usually happens in early November, all of these peppers are going to be wiped out. So that's going to bring my season to an abrupt end. What I'm doing is I am specifically starting smaller early peppers that ripen with lesser solar energy, because I'm going to plant them in containers and then overwinter them, so I will be able to keep picking peppers all the way until Christmas, maybe longer. What you see right here is an early jalapeno pepper. I just recently sowed this and it has germinated, and these only take about 90 to 100 days to get fruit off of them from the day that you plant the seed. This plant is going to go in one of these 3-gallon containers right here. Pepper plants grow great in containers, and the 3-gallon I think is the perfect size. So I always want to have a few of these on hand throughout the winter, because those first frosts are sporadic. So if you just carry them in on those initial cold nights, generally you can extend your growing season for weeks, sometimes even months. We usually get our first frost here around November 7th. We'll get 1 or 2 cold nights in a row, but then the temperatures will usually rebound for another week or 2 before we get the next one. So if you're just able to take these and carry them into your garage, then you can usually extend your growing season. And then you just wash, rinse, and repeat over and over again, and you bring them in until you just get sick and tired of doing it. Jalapeno jalapenos and other small fruited peppers do great in containers like this, and they will fruit for you really far into the winter if you just give them about 6 hours of light every single day. So if you want to find a great way to extend your growing season, growing some of these smaller fruited peppers in containers is really a great way to do that. The fourth crop that I'm still sowing in July are small fruited melons that have a quick days to maturity. If you love growing watermelon like I do, at this point in the year, if you don't have your transplants already in ground and they aren't currently in the flowering and fruiting phase, it probably is too late for you to start watermelon seeds unless you have an extremely long growing season, because they need really warm temperatures for a long period of time, and many of these varieties take 100 to 150 days in order to mature after transplant. But these small fruited melons can ripen their fruit in half the amount of time. They're more like a cucumber or a zucchini plant in terms of days to maturity. I mean, they are, after all, in the same cucurbit family, so they are closely related. And some small fruited melons that I suggest that I have had fantastic success with are a watermelon called Lemon Drop, the Kajari melon, which I really love, and a small fruited cantaloupe called Honey Rock. And I'll quickly show you what some of these small fruited melons look like. Here I built a garden teepee as a trellis a couple of seasons ago just for fun, and I'm growing small fruited melons among this teepee because they grow great vertically. And here you can see the small honey rock cantaloupe hanging down, and then below it, these two very interesting looking melons are the Kajari melons. The melons are growing in 20-gallon fabric grow bags, and they are doing just great. We're setting little tiny fruits all over the place, and if you dig around, you can see they are popping up all over the place. So if you're looking for small melons to grow in containers, these are some great selections. And then here we have the small lemon drop watermelon. This is also a great candidate for growing vertically, and you can see this one is starting to ripen right here. It turns a beautiful shade of yellow. We have another one right here. We have another one here, and this is just one single plant, and it is this productive and easy to grow. They fruit in a much faster time because of their small size. Now, just like your cucumbers and zucchini, these small fruited melons perform very well being direct sown when soil temperatures are very warm. Now that it is July, you don't need to start transplants. You can just place the seeds directly in ground, and they should germinate in about 3 to 5 days. The fifth crop that I'm starting right now are tomatoes for a fall tomato garden. The torrential rains and the insane heat and humidity that we get here in the summer wipes out our spring planting of tomatoes. The vines get really sickly and they typically die off come August. However, fall has the perfect weather for second tomato season. The key to a successful fall tomato garden is to select varieties that have a shorter days to maturity and that are early tomatoes. Predominantly, you'll want to grow determinate and dwarf tomato varieties. And some of my favorites are Legend, Selects, and Rosella Purple. I've had great success with all of these and they mature very quickly, but there are countless more varieties to choose from. Any tomato variety that are preferably determinate varieties and have a days to maturity of about 50 to 65 are really good candidates. Alternatively, you could also grow indeterminate cherry tomatoes that have short days to maturity, like this Super Sweet 100 or other popular plants like Sungold. This Legend tomato just germinated on me a couple of days ago, and it's already starting to form its first set of true leaves. So these will probably be transplanted into the ground in about 3 to 4 weeks once the absolute worst of the heat is behind us, but there is still plenty of growing season ahead of us for us to get a really good harvest all throughout October into November. If your growing season is shorter than mine and you don't have enough time for your seeds to germinate, or you want to get an even bigger jump start and your current tomato plants are still healthy, you can break off suckers on your earlier varieties and you can root them. These are 2 rooted suckers that I took about 3 weeks ago from my plants before they started succumbing to disease, and they are already ready for transplanting. So if your tomato plants are still healthy, rooted suckers are a great way that you can jump ahead about 2 to 4 weeks. All you have to do to root a sucker is to break one of the suckers off the tomato plant, then you just put them in wet potting mix, any kind of commercial potting mix will do, and then put it in shade away from any sunlight and keep that potting mix moist, and in about 1 to 2 weeks it should root, and then it will be ready for transplanting probably about in a month. And the 6th crop that I'm planting in July are potatoes. Potatoes are often planted in the spring for a late spring to early summer harvest. However, they also make phenomenal plants to grow in the fall. They love cool weather, and now is the perfect time to start another crop of potatoes. All you need to grow potatoes is a potato that has sprouted for you, and this potato right here was in the back of my pantry. It has begun to sprout, and these sprouts, when you bury this potato, will turn into the potato plant, and then the potatoes will form along the roots of said plant. Earlier this year, I showed you how to plant potatoes from start to finish. I'll make sure to drop that link down in the video description, as well as a most recent harvesting video, because these can be cured and stored for months at a time. Potatoes are one of my favorite things to grow in containers because of how low maintenance they are and how easy it is to harvest your potatoes when you grow them in containers. Instead of having to go out into the garden with a pitchfork and start digging, you just take your containers and you dump them over. These were the very containers that I grew potatoes in earlier in the spring. I can't reuse them because potatoes colonize a lot of the same diseases, so I wouldn't want to plant my fall crop into potting mix that just had potatoes growing in them. So I will start new containers with fresh potting mix to grow my fall potatoes, and I will use these to grow lettuce in. Now, for those of you in much cooler climates that have short growing seasons that simply can't grow any of these things this late in the season because it gets really chilly for you starting in, say, September, I have some options for you as well, because I don't want you to overlook fall gardening, because it is such a wonderful, pleasant time to grow vegetables, particularly frost-tolerant vegetables. So for those of you who have very short growing seasons, consider growing things like lettuces, brassicas like cauliflower, kale, broccoli, and chard. Consider growing peas, either snap peas, English peas, or snow peas, and also root vegetables like carrots and radishes. All of those things are frost hardy. And don't forget about cold hardy herbs like parsley, dill, cilantro, and more. And that right there are 6 different crops that I am starting in July, and I bet many of you can too. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden, they are all linked down below in my Amazon storefront in the video description. So expand that video description and click on the Amazon link to see everything I use in real life. And while you're there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Oh man, Dale, it is not even 10:30 in the morning and the heat index is already 109 degrees. Poor Dale is looking really Dale-pressed. He probably wants to go for his morning WALK, but it is way too hot out there. I mean, it looks really nice. It looks like it's a nice day, but it feels like a horrible oven. So, buddy, I guess we'll just have to hang out in the air conditioning most of the day, and then we'll go for our little stroll around the neighborhood tonight when it cools off, okay? We don't want to burn your paws on the hot sidewalk. See, here where we live in North Carolina, our summers are more like our winters. In the dead of summer, that's our indoor season, and then we're able to go outside and enjoy most of the winter. Even in January, it's usually pretty mild, but now, this time of year, it is not mild.